Yes, hello. Welcome back to another video. And in today's video, we are in the 737-600 by PMDG, and we are at the gate at Birmingham Airport, which is in the West Midlands in the UK. So in this video today, we're going to go through a cold and dark setup, which will also include starting the APU, putting the flight plan into the FMC, pushing the aircraft back, starting the engines, are ready for taxi. I'll try and keep the video as short as possible as we go through the tutorial. I am following my own tutorial procedure that I've written up myself, and the AI traffic in the video is provided by Beyond ATC today. Okay, so should we get on with it? Checking the sound levels. The desktop audio is on 0.0 decibels. I'll see how the sound levels go as we progress, but as we start the engine up, the aircraft up, and the AI traffic as well, the audio might get a bit too loud and you might struggle to hear me, but we'll see how we get on. Okay, so we're at the ready to fly, so we're going to press ready to fly, so press that, like so. Put you in the outside view. Obviously those that have used this simulator will know this anyway. We're not going to go into too much information about the airport. The airport is the Payware add-on. I can't remember who actually made it. But I think it's the only one available for Birmingham. But I'm not going to go around the airport too much. The video is not about that. It's about this aircraft here. Again, I'm not really into the detail. I know you see a lot of videos out there when they've got when they go around the aircraft looking at all the details up close and personal with you know, things like this where you can look in there. I mean, I don't know whether that should be like that actually. I don't know, but yeah, I'm not really into that kind of thing. I know there's a lot of people put videos out that kind of have to do all this and have to look into all to make sure got a lot of detail. I'm not really into that kind of thing with my videos, but we'll just have a quick look around anyway. I know some of the exterior, I think it's not quite at the standard yet. I think there's still a bit of work to do, but none of that really majorly bothers me too much. And it does tend to bother a lot of people, but yeah, it all looks okay to me. I haven't got the eye for detail, but I mean, yeah, so you can go right up to it and you can see the resolution in the writing, but I believe there's an update still to come out that will make this even better on the outside, maybe, and more detail. I don't know, but like I said, I'm not really majorly into that. This airplane, by the way, cost was $14.99 US dollars, which works out to about £10.19 if you put that into pounds. So yeah, not bad at all. That's with a 60% discount if you've already purchased this aircraft in Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, so you get the discounted price. And this was always a cheaper aircraft anyway. I think it costs 35 in 2020, so it was always the cheapest one. So yeah, for the price, if you've already got this aircraft, and for the discounted price, it's definitely worth purchasing. And I think even without a discount, it's still going to be cheap. I think at 35 US dollars or something like that. So it's, if you want a 737 but don't want to pay £70-80 without the discount for the 800 series, 900 series, and they're not yet released 700 series, and the 600 series is definitely worth getting. But for the discounted price, it's even worth it, even better. Anyway, so we're in the cockpit now, and I've got my turbo tracker, which always puts me behind the seat, so I will turn that off. I have got custom view because I've already done a video in this aircraft, and I've set custom views up throughout the aircraft. So I don't need to do those. As you can, the wingspan on this aircraft is the same size as the wingspan on, for example, the 800. But obviously the body is short and stubby, which is the smallest 737. There's not a lot of these in service anymore, because they weren't very practical. Obviously, I think it's about 110, 150 passengers, and it uses the same amount of fuel as the. It probably uses more fuel than its bigger counterparts. So yeah, there's not a lot of these in service anymore. The 800 is probably the most popular 737. So, but if you, like I said, if you want a 737 that is a 737 NG, that's probably the only one you can get in the game at the minute, I think, in Flight Sim 2024, the NG, then yeah, get it. But I do actually, before I prefer the one on next plane, the Seabird mod 737. I prefer that one. And as old, I prefer X-Plane to Microsoft Flight Sim, but the video is not about that, so we won't mention that again. But yeah, if you want a 737NG, 600 is budget an issue, then 600 is definitely worth the price, especially with the discount. Okay, so again, we're in the cockpit. I've done my flight plan, won't worry about that for a minute. So the first thing we're going to do in the 737, obviously because we've got no doors and stuff open at the minute, it's a bit unrealistic that we're all sitting in the cockpit and there was no doors. So we're going to fire up the EFB by pressing this button here, and we're going to go into ground operation. Now this stuff also in the FMC as well down here, and this is the old way of doing it. I think in 2020 you did it from the FMC, but in this newer 2024 version you can also do it from the EFB, so you've got a choice. I prefer doing it from the EFB because most aircraft now you do it from the EFB. So in the EFB, you've got door management, and you got the doors here, entry 1 left, 2 left, etc. We're going to open the entry 1 left, like that, and that should have opened it. Yes, it did. No, it didn't. And maybe it was open already. I didn't notice it was open already. Maybe it was. So okay, well, this is not a good start because I can't open the door. Does not opening actually fire the aircraft up? That's opening now. Okay, that's strange. So yeah, once we've done that, then so we've got the door open. So obviously we've walked onto the aircraft. Don't worry about anything else in here. Ground maintenance. Don't worry about ground maintenance. Don't worry about ground vehicles at the minute. And the chocks are in place, so don't worry about any of that at the minute. To be fair though, the ground power out we're going to request that, because we want to get that connected before we actually get the batteries up and running, so we can get straight onto that straight away. Also, obviously with ground services and all that kind of stuff, if you're using something like GSX, and you won't have to worry about all this. But I'll go through some of this today in the video, because I won't be using GSX in this video today. Okay, so as you can come to outside, the GPU there is now connected, which is fine. And you can actually hear it as well. And if I was to put the air conditioning unit on by pressing request, which you don't have to use, I think if you're in a really hot country and the temperatures are really hot, then you probably would use the ACU to keep everything nice and cool. And I wasn't going to mention the X-Plane Seabird mod in X-Plane 12, but when you connect the ACU, you get the noise that goes with it. Let's see if you get that noise in this. Just saying it's connected. Maybe you do. It's there. Wait, there it is anyway, so it's there. Yeah, you get the noise. So that's stimulated, which is good. But we don't necessarily need it, so I'm going to release it and get rid of it. But yeah, I just wanted to see if that noise was actually stimulated, and it is. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to check the wipers off in park, both in park. The landing gear lever is down. Thrust levers are both in idle. Parking brake is set, and the fuel shutoffs are in the shutoff position. On the overhead panel, dome light is in the off position, but if it was really dark outside, we could probably put that onto bright. And on the center pedestal, we could obviously move the floodlight and the panel lights as well to a more brighter position, so when the batteries come on and we connect to the GPU, all the lights come on, because it would be pretty dark. But we're not going to do that in this one, that's only if it's dark. So first thing we're going to do then, since we've already decided we don't need any lights today, is we're going to go back to the overhead panel. Now we can do it like this, which I recommend getting used to, or you can set up a few and do it like this. I do it like this today because it'll be easier to follow. So we're going to put the battery switch, which is a DC switch, down to on. It's already uncovered, so we're going to click on it, down to on, and we get the initial systems firing up. So just leave it a few seconds and get it all fire up on its own. And then of course we don't want to keep it on the battery too long because we will drain the battery, and as the GPU is already connected, we now need to connect it inside the aircraft. So we do that by switching this switch down, hover over it, and you can just press your left mouse button. And then the system all comes alive. Just checking my sound levels, I'm on 0.0 decibels, so the sound should still be okay. Okay, so now we've got ground power connected. We're not going to drain the batteries on the aeroplane. So after we've done that, we want to go up to the AC power, and we want to put the knob onto ground power, and by default it already is. In some 737s it's on standby power and you just need to switch up to ground power, but in the 737-600 it's already on ground power by default. Then we want panel lighting and circuit breakers, so we want to put them as required. It's a fairly bright day today, so you don't need them on too much, but obviously the darker the day, then the more you'll put them on. But we're not going to worry about them too much in this video, so we'll leave it off. Engine bleeds, down to on. They're on by, which they are by default, so we haven't got to mess with them. But that'll be the next thing we'll do. Electric 2 and 1, we need to switch those down to on, so this one and that one, and the low pressure lights go out. Standby power is on auto, so we can cover that back up. Position lights are on steady as default, so if that was in the off position, we'll click it down to steady. Logo lights, you can add those as required. During darkness or low visibility, you might want to put the logo light on, which is the tail, the logo on the tail, on the fin. In today's video I'm going to leave those off, but this is where you'd either leave them off or you'd switch them on, and you'll switch them on by pressing it down, but I'm going to leave them off today for this one. Wing lights are here, you can put those on for the external walk around. We're not doing an external walk around today, so we can leave those off. The emergency exit lights, we need to click those to armed, so if it was like that, you'd remove the cover and you'd switch it onto armed. The window eats are at the top up here, and we got side, forward on the left, and on the right we've got forward and we've got side, and as you can see we've got the 4 greens all saying on, so they're on. The engine hydraulic pumps are already on by default, so we don't have to touch those. The trim air, the 737-600 NG doesn't have trim air. If it did, it will be here, but this 600 version doesn't have trim air, so we haven't got to worry about that. The recirculation fan is there, and it'll be on auto or off, so that needs to be on auto, and if you turn it off you can hear the sound difference. Listen, hear the difference in the sound. The left and right packs we're going to leave off, we don't need them until we start the engine, so we're going to leave those off. You can put them in auto, but if you put them in auto at this point, you've got to remember to turn them both back to off before starting engines. So in fact we'll put them in auto following my checklist, so we can go through my checklist properly. So we'll put them both in auto for now. Flight altitude would set, so I'm going to leave at 10,000 feet, but if you were from up to 30,000 feet you'd put that in now. Landing altitude would be your landing airport. So in this particular version I put a flight planning from Birmingham to Cardiff, so your landing altitude will be the elevation of the airfield at Cardiff, but so you'll just do that. So if it was 400, you leave on 400. If it was 300, or if it was 200 or 100, or if it was, say, if it was 170, you'd put it to the next available one. So that'd be 50. If it was 180, you'd put it to 200. So you always put it to the nearest one you could put it to, and obviously if it was minus, you'd put it on minus values. But we're not going to worry about that in this video. Okay, I've got yaw damper now, but that won't, well, we can put it on now, it works, but yeah, it kicks back off, so we need to do that later on in the procedure. The VHF nav IRS FMC control panel, which is all here, and the VHF nav should be on normal, IRS should be on normal, FMC should be on normal, and the source should be on auto, and the control panel should be on auto, on normal. The center fuel pumps, so we have got fuel in the center fuel pumps, it looks like. So we can click the center fuel pumps on, and we can put the AFT fuel pump on, and the chrome only switch we can put down to on, or we can leave in the auto position. So you've got 2, 1, but I'll put it down to on. On the overhead panel, both flight directors can go on, and auto brake can go down to rejected takeoff. And back on the overhead panel, we need to set up the RS. So we start with the left one, and we click it to align. On DC lights up. Once it comes up align, click to nav, and do the same for the right hand side. On DC, that disappears and a line comes up, press the nav, And then up here we want to go to heading status, and that will give us our countdown of how many minutes to align. It says 0, so obviously in the settings I've probably got instant align somewhere in the settings on the FMC. And then it comes up 08, so maybe I've got it set to realistic, so that's probably 8 minutes until alignment. And then once we've done that, we need to come down to the FMC and we need to enter the IRS position. To do that, we need to click on the flight management computer FMC keypad here, then press POS init down here. We need to fill our reference airport, so we're at Birmingham today, so Birmingham is EGBB. I don't know what gate we're at. If you know it, you can enter it. If you don't, you can leave it blank, it's fine. Once we've done that, we need to click on next page because we need to get this information here. We need to set the IRS position so the IRS aligns correctly, and we need to get that from the next page. So we click on next page and then we choose GPS L, or we can choose GPS R. Both the same, just a small difference at the end here. I always choose GPS L, so we're gonna click on that, and then we get the coordinates in the scratch pad. Once we've got that, we go back to previous page and we can put this into here by clicking like that. That then sets the IRS position. Did you see this move as well? So it sets our position up so it knows exactly where we are now, and the IRS will all set up properly. Okay, so now we could say we're in turnaround mode. If you go back up here, IRS is up there, so we're happy with that, and we're happy with what we've done now. So we've got our initial setup of the aircraft, and we've got our IRS position all set up. As you can see, we are at gate 8. So, and we've actually got this destination, estimated time of departure, time to departure, and our flight number was there as well. That's the airport. But with this being a parallel airport, we've got our gate there as well, so we can actually put gate 8 in there if you wanted, but we're not going to. Okay, so then at this point then we would now get our ATC clearance. So in order to get our ATC clearance, I'm using Beyond ATC today. Let's put that there for you. We're going to click on the headphones and we get a bit of information for our departure airport here. So Birmingham Airport, we've got the ATIS information, so we've got our time, we've got our cloud coverage, the runway in use is 33, the transition altitude is 7,000 feet, and flight restrictions in effect for EGBB, and information we got today is Delta. So if you were to speak to ATC, you would need to give them information Delta, otherwise they wouldn't speak to you, and obviously advise aircraft type on first contact. But we're not going to do that today. We're just going to click on clearance, and we're going to do a radio check. and I've probably got no audio, so I need to put the audio back up. There we go. And then you would request your IFR clearance.
Ryanair 1168, ready for airways to Cardiff Airport.
Ryanair 1168, Birmingham delivery, expect runway 33. Climb 6,000 feet on runway centerline, then expect radar vectors Compton. Squawk 3153.
Expect runway 33. Climb 6,000 feet on runway centerline, then expect radar vectors Compton. Squawk 3153. Ryanair 1168.
Ryanair 1168, read back correct. Contact ground 121.805 when ready for push or start.
We'll contact ground 121.805 when ready for pushback or engine start. Ryanair 1168. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Okay, so we've been cleared. We've been given our initial information, so the departing runway is runway 33. Our altitude clearance at the minute is 6,000 feet, so we can only clear to climb to 6,000. So if our cruise altitude is 30,000 feet, we can't climb to 30,000 feet. We can only climb to 6,000 feet until we're cleared to climb any higher. Our standard instrument departures date, we haven't got one, so we're going to be using radar vectors. Get to Compton. We've got a squawk code, and we've got our ground frequency. And I also turned off the devices there because I didn't want them playing in the background. If you don't use Beyond ATC, don't worry about what I've just said on the screen there with this. Ignore Beyond ATC for the rest of the video. I just wanted to put it in there for people that actually use Beyond ATC. But we'll get rid of it for now. And let me. So now we've got our flight plan, we can program the FMC. And in order to program the FMC, click on route. On the 737s, the next thing to do is always at the bottom right hand corner. So this is always your next thing you've got to do in the FMC. So you know, so you can follow it basically like a book. So if you press on route, and then we need to enter our departure airport, which is EGBB, which is already in the scratch pad. We can enter our destination if you want to, and for this video I will. You don't have to, but I'll do it for this video. So, and then once we've done that, we click on flight plan request. Now, I've done this flight plan in SimBrief, and then I generated the flight plan in SimBrief. So the aircraft will actually get the flight plan from SimBrief by using the FMC. I'm not going to do a full SimBrief demonstration in this video. I'm pretty sure most of the users will know how to do that. But I can pull the SimBrief flight plan into the Microsoft Flight Sim 2024 tablet, and I do that after we've done the flight plan in the FMC. So in order to get that flight plan now from SimBrief, we will click on flight plan request. Actually, no, we don't do that first, do we? My mistake. Scrap that bit. We need to come over to the EFB. So in order again to get the flight plan from SimBrief into the FMC, we need to come into the EFB. and we need to request data from SimBrief. So it loads the route up here in the EFB, and obviously you get the information here again, so the call sign, the aircraft type, zero fuel weight, distance for the route, the winds, and the route itself, which is the company route, alternate airport. You get that all here, and if you click on departure, you get the departure information, and you get your arrival information, and you get your alternate information there as well. Yeah, I actually forgot you need to do that in the PMDG 737, and obviously if you click on the operating flight plan, you get all your other information, including the cost index, which you'll need as well at some point, and obviously you'll get your plan fuel as well, all down here. So yeah, I actually forgot about that. So if you go back over to the FMC now, and then press on flight plan request, it comes up, see? I'm not quite sure what this is here. I don't know if you can save flight plans into the FMC in this aircraft, but we need to click on this one. Just double check it. So it's EGBB to EGFF, which is Birmingham to Cardiff. The alternate is EGLL, which is Heathrow. Initial altitude will be 16,000 feet, cost index of 73, distance 141, and then we've got our weights, including our block fuel and our reserve fuel. So we can select that route, and we should get a flight plan uplink appear. There you go. And once that flight route uplink comes up, click on load, and that then will load our flight plan into the FMC. And click on next page, it'll all start to filter through, and we can then click on activate and execute, and we can clear any messages down here in the scratch pad if you've got any. Okay, and if you go to legs, we've got the first few legs appear into the leg page. Okay, and go back to route, and we've already activated it and we've already executed it. So now we can go on to perf init, which is this one here, and then we get our weights. Now if you go back over to the EFB, and we go back into the home screen, weight and balance, so load the plan from SimBrief. We've got all our weights like this, and you can do a quick loading, you can do a precise loading if you're going to use the tablet to load the aircraft. If you're going to use GSX to load the aircraft, you'd obviously bring GSX up, your SimBrief OK would come up, you'd click on that, and then you can load the aircraft as well, and that would put the fuel in, the baggage and the passengers will be put in, and load the aircraft as well up to of your weights from SimBrief. But if you go back to this, so we can actually do it on there, like so. And there was an option to do it in the FMC as well, to set payload and stuff. You could have done it in the FMC before I accepted the route. You could have done it in the FMC, but we're going to do a quick load today, so we're going to do that. If we go back down to the FMC, we can click on Servo fuel weight, and it brings the weight up in the scratch pad. Then we need to double click on it, and that comes up. And if we bring up our what I'm going to do now is put my SimBrief flight plan into the Microsoft Flight Sim EFB. If you haven't already got this, download SimBrief Dispatch, and this brings SimBrief into the game, and then we can click on View, because then once you've generated your flight plan into SimBrief like this on the browser, you get all this information. But if you've got the dispatch installed, you can do it within the EFB in the game. See? And you get all your weights as well. Just make sure your weights are in kilograms or in pounds, and they match up with the same what's in the game. Actually, our altitude is going to be 16,000 feet, so we're going to put that in there. Our cost index is 73. And our reserves, if we click on View PDF, we're going to go, our reserves were in the PDF file. So we're looking at final reserves 992. So we're going to put, you can put 992 in there for your reserves, or is it 9.2? There we go. And then you can click on next page like that. Or you can also do this, look, perf init request. So you can get a perf init request as well. Once you get that, perf init uplink comes up, and you can press load, and that information gets filled in for you. Like I got my reserves wrong, didn't I? It was 5.5, but it all comes up for you, so you haven't got to put it in yourself. So that's another way of doing it. And then you can press on execute, and then you can go into M1 limit. Let's just get rid of that tablet. So in M1 limit, then we need to set our thrust for takeoff. So we've got all different settings. We're going to use the default one today, and then we can move then on to takeoff. So that's the next thing to do, always in the bottom right hand corner. Flaps in the 600, it's flaps 1. If I was using the 737-800, it'll be flaps 5. But in the 600, it's always flaps 1. It's a shorter aircraft. And then for the fee speeds, we can click on each one. But obviously, they don't work in this one, so we're going to go in manually. For the central gravity, which is the trim, 23.9, enter that back in there, and then we get a trim of 5.1. So we can come to the trim wheel, and we can adjust the trim wheel to get our trim of 5.1. That should do it. So to get our fee speeds, I think those are in the EFB over here. Again, every aircraft is different. Performance tool, takeoff. We can import that from the operational flight plan. What's the one where I do 33? So runway 33, and then we get all our information like runway heading, the slope, the length, the conditions, is it dry or wet? It looks dry today, so it's dry. And then we can get, we can press import from OFP, or we can import from the aircraft. The flaps, we can put flaps 1 in there, and the rating, you put your rating there as well, but I'm just going to leave it on takeoff 1, takeoff there. And we can import the weather, and then we can calculate it, and then we get our fee speeds. Look, 125, 126 and 130. So back over here, you can't press them. Sometimes you can do that and it enters it automatically. You've got to do it manually in this one. So V2 was 130. Okay. So we can do it like that. So we know our V2 is going to be 130, so we need to add 10 to that, and then you can put that in the autopilot panel. So 130 add 10 becomes 140. Right, let me click on departure, and our departure was Compton, but the game factors. So first of all, let's click on runway 33, and we're fine, we've got no SID as we're not using a departure today. But if you was using a departure today on Beyond ATC, it would be here and would see it here. But we're getting affected today, so we've got no departure, so don't have to worry about putting a departure in today. So you can just execute that and then go back to route, back to our legs. So we've got no departure in, so our legs are going to remain the same. The same with arrivals. If you go into arrivals, if you know your arrival, you don't normally do this until you're in your cruise and you get ready to descend. You get your arrival information from ATC when you're on your descent. So, but if you want to do that, you click on runway and then your star, and you'll click on whichever one you wanted. So if I was going to be landing at runway, for example, if I was going to be landing at runway ILS 12 today, and I was given this star up here, I'd select both of those and then I'd execute it. And then in the route, it'll all be in there, like in the legs, like so. But then I might get a disco, a route discontinuity. Get rid of that, you need to click on the one below. So I'll be clicking on badge A, that comes into the scratch pad, going back, then clicking on the disco, clear it and execute it. Then I'll be having a look for another one. There's one there, so again I'll be clicking on that one. I'll be dragging it up one, so I'll be clicking on the one below, dragging it up, deleting it, executing it. So I should have no more in the flight plan. So we've got our legs up to our arrival, and then we start our star. But obviously this wouldn't be accurate because ATC wouldn't give it a shit, and we don't know what runway we're going to be landed on. So this is just an example while we're on the ground. But you can also always go back into here and you can change it if you wanted to. If you thought you're going to get that arrival, you can always change it in the flight later on. After you've done that, press on program for the EFOB. So you get all the waypoints, and you get your distance and your ETA. So you get your time of arrivals, and you'll get your estimated fuel burn as well. And you can also click through each page. It's a good idea to put that onto the co-pilot side, so you've got it on that one, because you won't always need it on this one, because you will need other things. So go back to the leg page and just leave it on there for now. Go to the autopilot. You want autothrottle arm. Flight directors are on. The speed is set to Mach V2. VS can go on. Initially you can put 2,500, and once you reach 2,500 it will then automatically switch over to VNAV, because then we can put VNAV on. You can put both on at the same time as long as you put VS on first. Once it reaches this initial climb of vertical speed, it will go over to VNAV, and we can also put our nav on in some 737 you can put our nav on there. In this particular model you can put that on once you take off, but in some 737s you can put it on there, but it depends how it's modelled, and I think this one is modelled realistically, so you probably can't put that on it until you take off. And yeah, so over on the EFIS panel we want to put this knob down to map plan. Range can be as required, put it on 5 for now. Data, put the constraints on, and over down the FMC, if you left it in leg page, once you've put that to plan, step comes up. And if you click on step, it goes through all the legs, so you can go through the legs on here. So you can actually set the range to be a bit further out if you want, and you can actually see your flight plan on the display like so. Obviously my flight plan's a bit confused at the minute because there's a few things in there that shouldn't be in there and I need to delete them. But if your flight plan isn't, if you've got your flight plan, your departure, you'd have your departure up until your initial descent, and your arrival will go in there later. So you'll just go through all that and you'll cycle through it all, and once you're happy you can put that back onto plan and set the range back as required. You've also got the option to put weather on. You can do that. You wouldn't necessarily do that now. You do that once you've taken off, or if you're at an airport that needed terrain, you'd put terrain on, especially if you're in an airport that's got a lot of mountains around you. You can also put things like waypoints on, or airports and stuff like that on as well. And you can put your traffic on there as well, and you can click on that to get all different kinds of displays, including this one here. You can click on feet per minute and also meters to have extra information. And you've got your barrows there as well. You may have got that from from the ATC. And you've got your standard button there. When you get to your transition altitude, which I think in our case would be 7,000 feet, you'll click on that on standard, and it syncs this side as well, but as setting in the options you can change that. Okay, center pedestal. Come down to this section here to enter the squat code. So if there's a number in there, just clear it. Our squat code on Beyond ATC was 3153. There we go. So we need to enter that in, so it's 3153. And once you've done that, we can click up to, I normally put on TAR at this point. In the real world, you won't put it on TARA until I think you're lined up on the runway, but I put it on there because I normally forget later on. But I always do it now. But if you want to keep it realistic, put it on when you get to the runway. So you probably just leave it in TA only at this point. But I always put it on TARA, and then you've got your TCAS, which is below or above or normal. It's just so that your autopilot doesn't do crazy things on you as it does when other aircraft are around you. But I put it on there, and it's only a sim, so it don't really affect things much. But people tend to put it on realistically, so you can do it when you get on the runway. Okay, so ILS frequencies would go in here. So for Cardiff, we could do this by searching for Cardiff. So Cardiff would be EGFF, like so. Runways, so we put runway 12 in, and the frequency for runway 12 will be 1110.700. So here you can type in 110, the decimal automatically, and you haven't got to put in 700, just put in 70. It never has the last one. Once you've done that, you can press this button to activate it, and you can do the same on this side, or you can leave it on, or you can put the Cardiff ILS in standby and have the ILS for Birmingham. And if you wanted, I normally put the ILS frequency in now. I'm not sure if the game does it automatically in the 737. In the Airbuses, once you put your arrival into the FMC, it does this automatically for you. I'm not sure if it does that in the 737s, but that's one way of getting it in the EFB. And you can also get your chart in as well. These all come with the game, so you can get the chart as well. Yes, if you wanted to look at the charts, but you probably do that in flight. But you can do that now if you've got time. Okay, once you've done that, then At this point the aircraft will probably be loaded. If you're using GSX, it'll probably be loaded at this point. I know that this took a bit longer than normal to do this, as I demonstrate it. You can just go through and you can double check things if you wanted. Like I said before, you can actually request all this as well if you didn't want to use GSX. If you haven't got GSX and you wanted to see stuff outside the aircraft, you could actually do this as well. So you could laboratory service, cargo, fuel truck, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to close the door now because we've already loaded, so let's close that door. Closing, just heard it close. Not quite sure if that takes away the stairs, so we might have to take away the stairs ourselves on here. If using GSX, obviously stairs will be took away automatically, or if using a gate jetway, yeah, it'll be automatically. But to get rid of the stairs, I think you press this one down here. So disconnecting. I think they just disappear, or do they move away? Not really sure. They move away, so there you go. So yeah, if you haven't got GSX, you can just have a play around with all this stuff down here, or you can request all or release all. Obviously we'll leave it on there. We'll need to remove the chock in a bit. Obviously GSX will do that automatically. The FMC has stuff as well. You've got PMDG set up with all different options, and FS actions, which is the same thing as the EFB, just that this is the old way of doing it, and the EFB is the new way of doing it. So I'm not going to worry about that now, but what we can do, just double check the FMC while we're in here. We can request the wins. We ain't done that yet, so we can request those. They should load up any second now. There you go, just pressing load on there, so we get the wins up here. We can execute that. There you go, so we get all the wins for our waypoints. It'll probably load up as we're going along, as it probably doesn't know them yet. And then we can just clear that one out. Yeah, so there's nothing really, anything else we need to do here now. The FMC is set up, so we can leave it in leg page. And on the overwear panel, we need to put the seat belts to on. You can leave them in auto, but you can put them down to on. The hydraulic pumps are both on. Let's put the fuel pumps on. If there's no fuel in the centre tanks, we can switch those off. Otherwise you might get a load of warnings. We'll switch them off. For now, if you've got fuel in the centre tanks, you'll leave those on. Okay, and so we're going to start the APU now. We've been given permission to start the APU. I don't think in Beyond ATC you have to get that information. I think in the real world you probably would have to ask to start the APU. In Beyond ATC I don't think you need to ask for it. So we're just going to start it. In order to start the APU, then we click on this down here. So we click it down to start. Low oil pressure lights up. So we know the APU is now starting up. You might be able to start even it. And then of course in the 737NG we get this EGT, which rises, and it will settle down. In the 737 MAX 8 or the MAX aircraft, obviously this is not in there. It's only in the older 737s. Once that settles down then, and it has settled down there now, look, we can put the APU generators on. So we need to transfer the electrics over to the APU generators, so which APU gen buses. So we're going to switch over to those by clicking down like so. Then up here, the ground power switches off automatically in the 737. So if I switch up like that, it doesn't do nothing. It's already switched off automatically as you transfer the bus over to the APU generators. So over on this panel again, the isolation valve should now be open, which it already is, and we need to switch on the APU bleeds. So do that by clicking down, and we get this information up here, see? And then you get the starting to come out again as it was before. The AC power selector, it's on ground power, so we need now to turn that back to standby power. And the left and right packs we now switch to off. And again, the explain difference, if we could have left those off to begin with, but I chose to put them on auto. Over on the EFB, we now need to get rid of the ground power unit, so we can do that by clicking this one here. It comes up disconnecting, and once that's disconnected, we can remove the chocks. Again, GSX would do all that automatically, but with the APU started, we also need to put on the GP, the anti-collision light. In the Phoenix A320, that would trigger pushback using GSX. It doesn't trigger pushback in any other aircraft, but once you've started the APU, you would put on the anti-collision light. Now I'm going to use GSX because the pushback feature in the PMDG I think is a bit broken, and the default pushback I don't really like, so I'm going to use the pushback feature in GSX. I haven't used GSX for loading the aircraft today, but I'm going to use it for pushback. So before we do that though, we need to get our pushback clearance off beyond ATC. So I'm going to request push and start.
Pushback approved. Face west.
Pushback approved. Face west. Ryanair 1168.
Okay, so once you've got a pushback request approved, GSX automatically comes up with this. So if you weren't using beyond
Hello,
ATC,
Captain. We are ready for pushback. Due to icing conditions, please stand by for engine start until push completed and brakes set.
if you weren't using beyond ATC, you would get pushback in the main menu of GSX. Because we were using beyond ATC, it did it automatically, and we don't interrupt pushback.
Departure check
Press no.
completed. Bypass pin inserted.
So I'm just going to put beyond ATC foiling levels back down. So we're just waiting for GSX to do its thing now. Obviously we can put these lights as required as well. I've left them as they are because it's daytime and we don't need them.
Locking gear.
But if it was night time or dim conditions, we'd put these as required on the and over here on this side as well. We don't need this page anymore, so we can come off this page and we can come on to the page over here. Okay, so for those that are using GSX, this is a little bit of a tutorial on pushback. So we can go for this one. Nose left, facing north, nose right, facing south. Quick edit pushback, quick edit pushback on map, straight pushback, which is straight out with a manual stop, or straight pushback, manual out with a manual stop. Yet again, I'm going to show you how to do a quick edit pushback on the map. So I'm going to click on that. Now we know we need to face west today, so we need to be facing this direction down here. So our nose needs to be facing towards this way. So in order to do that, we need to follow the instructions over here. So we've got all this information here as well, look, and we've got available routes. If you've already done this on this from this gate, you might have routes saved already, but I'm going to show you how to do it. So first left click set ends is your endpoint. So your first click is going to be your endpoint. So our endpoint is going to be there. More left clicks is the points in between. So if I click there and I click another one there, for example, like that. We can drag and move this around. Okay, but I'm gonna push till there. Drag to rotate means I can go like this. If I wanna push here, I can drag and rotate, and I can put it on the taxiway, on this taxiway like this. Okay. So you can be as precise as you want to be. Like that. And once you've done, just right click anywhere on the screen and save the route. Okay. Waiting for your action. Remove PMDG. Okay, so we don't want to interrupt that. What we need to do now is remove the parking brake, like so. Now I've never done it with a PMG aircraft before, so it may or may not actually work with a PMG aircraft. Ah, chocks are in place. So I thought I removed the chocks. So I did remove the chocks, but they're back in place again, so there we go.
Release parking brakes.
Parking brakes,
Commencing push.
there we go.
Due to icing conditions, please stand by for engine start until push completed and brakes set.
Okay. Okay, yes, the PMDG aircraft might be a little bit more finicky when using GSX, as it does. I don't think they like it to work with each other. Other aircraft it probably work better. So let's see where it pushes me. I'll start the engines once we push back. So let's see if it pushes. It should actually push us over here, facing the nose facing in this direction. Let's just check the interior views. There we go. See the man over there? I think GSX just adds a bit more immersion to the game, which is why I like using it. But the PMDG aircraft, they do work with it, but it's, and it seems to be working okay with it. I've not tried anything else apart from pushback with it, so I'm guessing that all the other stuff works with it. Just sometimes with the parking brake and stuff, it can be a bit issue where it sets the chocks and doesn't move them, but GSX does seem to remove the chocks on other aircraft. Obviously it does it automatically on the Phoenix A320.
Set parking brakes.
Okay, so set the parking brakes. Obviously now we'll be waiting for our confirmation for good engine start. So now we can start the engines. If that's annoying, we can get rid of it. We can get rid of it now and start the engines, because that, well, they will keep beeping us, and we know the engines are going to start okay. So we can click one of these if you want to. I'm going to stop here and complete pushback to get rid of them, but you wouldn't normally do that until the engines are started. So we're going to go ahead and start the engines now anyway. So in the 737, it's always the right engine first. So on the overhead panel, you can use ignition left or ignition right. I think one's odd days and one's even days.
Unlocking gear.
So I'm going to choose ignition right. Now, we shouldn't do this until they buggered off outside. We shouldn't really be doing this until we should start the engine before we told them to bugger off, but the beeping's quite annoying.
Tow truck disconnected.
So
bypass pin removed.
We'll do it now.
Left is clear, right is clear.
So turn the right engine switch to ground. And we can see again buggering off and doing their thing there. Obviously they're going to tell it's all okay, but we should have started the engines first. There you go. Have a good trip, thank you. So yeah, so we've got a monitor this at the minute. So as you can see, the N2, once it passes 20,000, 20%, we can introduce the fuel, and we do that by clicking down here. There you go. And once the engines have started, and it's a good engine start, this will click back to the off position automatically. I like that. And once it's done that, then we can start engine number one, which would be the left engine. So click to ground, got the N2 once it gets to 20%. And we can introduce the fuel. And again, this will clip back to the off position automatically once it's a good engine start. Just like that. And once that's done, then we can carry on with the overhead panel. So now the engines are running, just make sure that just check yeah, once it's all settled down, we can put the electric supply back over to the generators, so by clicking down Gen 1 and Gen 2, so we're transferring the bus's electric back over to the aircraft. They'll come off the APU. On the Pro Beat, we can click both to on. Wing anti-ice, engine anti-ice will be as required. The packs can now go on because we've left them off, but now the engine started, we can put the packs onto auto. The engines wouldn't have started if those had been on auto or I, so you always got to make sure those are off before you start the engines. Isolation valve can actually go to auto. Recirculation fan is on auto. The APU bleed can go off, that disappears. Your damper can now go on. The yaw damper warning light disappears. Both engines can go to continuous for takeoff. We can put that back to both. The APU now can be turned off, also be wasting fuel. And over on the center pedestal, we can set the flaps to 1. If we're in the 737-800, we're set them to 5. In the 600, it's 1. Okay. We can now test the flight controls. And we can arm the ground spoilers. We now would have been given taxi clearance. I'm not going to do it on Beyond A to C, but just imagine we were given taxi clearance now. Now we've been given a good engine start. Now the engines are running. We've been given taxi clearance, so at this point then we will put on the taxi lights to on. Strobe light is on steady. So steady is normal. So we can leave that on steady. We can put it off. At night time it's normally left on steady. During the day we can put it off for taxi, and obviously when we're taking off, before takeoff we will put it on strobe and steady when we're cleared to go onto the runway. Anti-collision lights can stay as they are. Logan light can go on now if you wanted to put it on, if you haven't done so already, or you can just leave it off. And that is the overhead panel completed. Obviously the dome light can go off while we're taxiing, and the floodlight down here on the center pedestal can go. You can dim that down as well while we're taxiing. And that's it. we are ready to taxi. Just get rid of that because we don't want to. There you go. Yeah, I didn't set the initial altitude before we done that. Cruising altitude was 16,000 feet, but because we were given a restriction by ATC to climb to 6,000 feet, we're going to put 6,000 feet in now. If we were using vectors from a departure within the FMC, we could set that to our cruise altitude of 16,000 feet, and the autopilot would actually follow the restrictions of the speeds and altitude within the FMC. Because we're using a vector and not a SID, we've got no altitude restrictions in there, so it will just go to 16,000 feet of our cruising altitude. So because we've been given an initial altitude of 6,000 feet, we need to put that in the autopilot until ATC give us our new altitude. So normally you get your SID and you don't need to do that, you just put your cruising altitude in there. But at this point we need to put the altitude that was given to us by ATC in there. So yep, there's nothing else to do. So at this point we can taxi. I just want to point out down here that when we were pushing back, this screen came up automatically, which I think GSX doesn't like, because the PMDG has its own pushback feature. So if you're going to use the pushback feature in the PMDG, it can cause errors with GSX. I've had it before. I've used this one and it didn't work. I then used GSX and then I couldn't move the aircraft because this one still had a tug in place, chocks in place, and you had to come in and you had to remove them. So I still think the pushback feature in this aircraft doesn't work properly. So if you do get errors where you're ready to taxi, it might be because you've used the pushback feature in this and then also use GSX or the default pushback feature, and they kind of cause errors with each other. They don't work with each other. So it might be a question you've got to come back down here and you've got to turn off the pushback feature and chocks, which may be invisible. I've had that problem before. So at this point you'll just be ready to taxi across to the runway. Now I'm not going to take off in this particular video. I'm not even going to taxi in this particular video because that's all I'm going to do for this demonstration, because taxiing is pretty straightforward, and the rest of the flight, once you've done a few flights, it's pretty much the same in every aircraft. You get to the runway, you put your strobes on, you put your landing lights on, and etc, etc. 10,000 feet, you turn off the seatbelt signs, you turn off the landing lights, and obviously at 1,000 feet after takeoff you put autopilot on, and that follows this. And then you just monitor the FMC with the displays and monitor your speed, etc, etc. And then upon getting descent you get your arrival information, which you enter into here. Passing 10,000 feet you put your landing lights back on, seat belts, and then at landing you set your flap speed and getting lined up with the ILS. So you don't really need to do that in a demonstration video, so I've literally just done it. So as a start up from cold and dark to ready to taxi. So that is basically the procedure to the video. Let me just reduce the volume level here a little bit now. I'm just reducing it to minus 10.1 decibels. So at this point then I can just go through the FMC. I said you've got FS actions down here. So you've got your fuel, payload, doors, pushback. If you went into pushback and then you couldn't move the aircraft at this point, you would actually need to, when you select tug and start, once you push back, the tug doesn't disappear, so you might need to come back into that and press none. I've had that issue before, especially when using pushback of GSX and you've used PMDG's pushback, so just try and use one or the other if you can. And again, you've got all this stuff up here as well. Panel state saving, so you can save your panel, you can load different panels, you can load your startup panel state. You got all these different options. I'm not going to go through them, but you can go through these options and choose what you want on or off, and that kind of stuff. It's all in there basically. So, but I'm not going to go through that today. But that's basically it. Yeah, so at this point then you'll just taxi your takeoff and do your flight and go to wherever you were going. So I'm going to leave that video there now. I know it took about an hour and 35 minutes to get to this point, but I just wanted to go through it. Obviously the more you do it, the quicker you are, and it takes me about 10-15 minutes to set up as an aircraft comes into land there. So yeah, I'm gonna leave the video there. I hope this has helped out. I just got traffic there as well, see. That was the aircraft coming into land. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else I need to actually go through. So I'm going to leave the video there, and hopefully you've enjoyed the video, and hopefully it's been a bit of a help. So until the next time, goodbye.